Good afternoon, kindergarten. We are here today to talk a little bit more about science. And in science, we have been discussing heat. And we want to talk a little bit about heat can change things. But first, I want to talk a little bit about something that is a solid and something that is a liquid. Now, some of you have talked about a solid before. Something that is hard, maybe. Something that doesn't move very easy, doesn't bend very easy. Well, this is a solid. A pen is a solid. You can see that no matter what I do with it, it still looks like a pen. It's solid. It doesn't really bend or move very much. Doesn't have too much bend to it. So I can say that a pen is a solid. Okay? If I turn it this way, it still looks like a pen. If I turn it this way, it still looks like a pen. If I hold it in my hand, it's still a pen. It doesn't really change its shape much. So we know that a pen is an example, and it doesn't, oops, I was spelling that wrong. It doesn't change its shape. So no matter where I put my pen, put it on top of my head, put it on my hand, it doesn't really change much. What would be another example of a solid? Think about if I were to put something on my head or in my hand, it's still going to look the same. Oh, that's a great example. If I take my phone and I put it on my hand, still looks like a phone. If I put it on my head, it still looks like a phone, right? So no matter where I put it, it's still like the phone. Doesn't really change its shape. Doesn't really change. Still looks the same no matter how I turn it, how I move it. It still looks the same. So that's what you're thinking about when you're thinking about a solid. It doesn't change its shape no matter where you put it. So a pen is an example, and we used a phone as an example. Then I want to think about a liquid. Oh, there we go. Some of you may be having breakfast right now, even though it's kind of in the afternoon. Milk is a great example of a liquid. Oh, water. Some of you are having water. You're exactly right. Water is another example of a liquid. Now, you're thinking of things that you can drink. There are other liquids that you can't drink, and they still are a liquid. What does a liquid do? We know that if I have a solid, it doesn't really change its shape no matter where I put it or where I move it to. If I think about a liquid, and I happen to have a liquid here, it's definitely something I would not want to drink. But I have liquid soap. And you can see liquid soap, it moves. If I were to open up my liquid soap, I have another one here. I have a green one. If I were to open it, I'm going to try not to make too much of a mess here. Let me put it over here on my other container so I don't make too much of a mess. Okay. I have my liquid soap. If I were to put some liquid soap in my hand, you can see it looks very different in the bottle. When I put it in my hand, it's still soap, but now it's a very different shape. It's not the same shape. So it actually takes the shape of whatever's holding it, whatever container it's in. In my hand, you can see it's taking the shape of my hand. It's dripping down my hand. If I turn my hand this way, it's going to drip this way. So it's taking the shape of my hand. Where in the container, it takes the shape of the container. So we have we know that soap, it takes the shape. Oh wait, the first thing it did was it poured. Did my pen pour? My pen did not pour. So I know a liquid can pour. It kind of flows out of a container. So it pours. I also showed you that when I put it in my hand, it kind of took the shape of my hand. When it was in the bottle, it takes the shape of the bottle. So a solid doesn't really change its shape, but I do know that a liquid takes the shape of the container. Now, knowing that, I'm going to think about heat and how heat is going to affect some of these items. If I were to have, let me clean my soap off on my towel here so I don't have soap in my hand anymore. If I were to add heat to something, if that was a solid, I wonder how it would change it. If I were to add heat to something that is a liquid, I wonder how it would change it. So we're going to try an experiment. Now that we know a little bit about solids and liquids, I'm going to take an ice cube. And the first thing I'm going to do, because I know that if I do this, if I take my hands and I rub them and I rub them and I rub them very fast together and I feel them, they get hot. So we rub our hands together and it makes them pretty hot. If you feel your palms of your hand, they're probably getting pretty hot about right now. So I want you to try that. Rub your hands together. See if you can make them hot. Very nice. We're going to need that when we do our experiment. So, next thing I want you to click on is the science experiment. And we are going to do some predicting in our science journal. So I need you to get your science journals out. And then we're going to show our science experiment.